Alright, this is the D.I.WHY. Why as in why are we doing this adventure? Probably final episode, but we'll see if I record another one. So we've been preparing for this challenge of doing basically an Ironman triathlon distances for about a week, for half a year with Charlie. And if you've listened to any of the previous organization podcasts, you can tell we were trying to figure out what's possible versus what we want to do. We actually had a disagreement, and I think all that was just coming from, our different skills. He's a great cyclist, so he's actually managed to get to Snowdon, so we set off together. But I bunked out. Well, I didn't bunk out, but I gave up. So I first starting with the swim, right? Because we cycled to a marine lake, and then we were trying to get 16 lengths for 4 kilometers on like this long lake. And after 4, my feet just got numb. I got so cold, so I just had to listen to my body and give up on that. But he managed, so he did all the 16 lengths and then warmed up. In the meantime, I was having a blast getting in the pub and reading a book about field studies, because part of why I'm doing this is to prepare for future interests in doing field work. And big part of it is actually surviving and being able to think when you're uncomfortable. So that's a difficult challenge, it turns out. So then we set off cycling, and Charlie broke a chain and had to go back for 3 hours of cycling. Because we were trying to do most of this with no digital tech. Well, we're trying to do all of it, but then whenever we would really need it, it was there. So he navigated back, got his chain fixed. In the meantime, I was guarding the bikes, testing out the new tent, the bivy tent I had bought, because we were gonna rough it some of the nights. Well, most of the nights it was a plan, but I'll tell you about how difficult that was. So then we fixed the chain, and that was Tuesday. And then same day he had a puncture as well, and we basically ended up where I thought was going to be where we reached anyway, before crossing the bridge into Wales, over the River Severn. But his ambitions were, because if he was just cycling on his own with his greater skill, he would have definitely been there. But trying to be in Chepstow, Usk or Abergavenny, furthest being Abergavenny. So, but we camped, we had a great fire, made some chorizo on the fire, and it was very tiring cycling up until 9 in the evening. But the main thing was just trying to figure out how the hell to pack up everything. I hadn't overpacked. I really don't think I had overpacked, but I just couldn't get used to the fact that my bike's just gonna have some stuff on it. And then I was basically trying to keep up. Always felt like I was behind. That's the most difficult thing, when you're with someone so much faster. So the next day I woke up with a banging headache. I just couldn't sleep at all, because I think that marine lake, even the last time we did something in it, and because I was so cold I never showered and tried to sleep with it even the last time, being the pig that I am. But it just, something felt like it was attacking me, trying to enter through my skin. I was like itchy and I just couldn't sleep, and figured out that in the bivvy, even though I got like an expensive one, it's just breathing through a straw when you close all of it off. But as soon as you open a little bit, then you're really out in the open. But slept as much as we can, but I woke up with a banging headache. Then we went to a service station and had a pretty good break. I discovered, eating my oats with a latte, kind of put into the overnight oats, into the soaked oats, is delicious. And then we started cycling. Got a few guys help us navigate. You know, they were over 70 and still cycling. It was amazing, you know, to see they can still keep going. Obviously, they also had, you know, hip replacements, knee replacements, so a word of caution, I guess, with the endurance stuff. But anyway, we made it to Abergavenny, and then we started. Well, we had a dip in a river, you know, prepared for a night of, you know, fire, but started getting really tired, and then we had to just camp in a field that we saw, and we were next to a wildfire, so with all the fire brigade going there, it just felt inappropriate to try and have our own fire, so just tried to sleep. Again, I figured it out though, you know, my tent has a mesh, so I mean with a mesh and under the stars, but actually packing up in my jackets and scarves was a better sleep. And I think actually the next time I'm not going to pack a sleeping bag because it does get quite warm, so that's going to be one thing less of weight. So then I woke up at 5 quite early and was testing out the sticks I bought, you know, the walking sticks. I just saw them in Aldi, 12 quid. Normally you'd get them for 100. So now I'm using them again as I'm trying to finish off the marathon, but not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, because I just knew on that day that I'm just holding Charlie back, and actually he can finish, but I won't be able to finish in the time that we had allowed. I mean, I knew I needed a week, but he was trying to do it in 5 days or 6 days, which was possible at his pace of cycling. But so I told him, you know, we're just gonna go and have breakfast, and then I'll give up. And you know, I did that. And then I booked myself into a B&B and rested. It's interesting, I've been trying the CO2 tolerance test, which is basically, you know, you breathe in normal 3 times, inhale to your maximum, and then see how long you can exhale for, how much CO2 you can tolerate, as a measure of your average, you know, like how tired you are versus, you know, once it starts decreasing, seeing how lower your tolerance is. It's a great tool because I could just see it drop down, and like, you might believe in miracles, but this is like a hard stop for your body, turns out. So, but that recovered again as soon as I had one night of sleep in the B&B, and then I agreed with my wife that she's gonna come and meet me in a little cabin we booked in Brecon Beacons in Wales. But that was another, you know, cycle away. So I went through Brecon, had a pit stop in an amazing cafe spot where they really gave me the best ever aid station I could ask for. 2 coffees on the way, and then cycling at my own pace, not feeling like I'm lagging behind, actually being very wu-wei, not trying too hard. I could just go forever on the bike. Everything clicked into place, and that was kind of something that I had told Charlie, that I don't do well in like starting things because I need my body to adjust, and once it adjusts it can keep going. And then that kicked in, so I had a total of 111 miles, and the Ironman distance is 112, so, you know, spending the night with my wife. And then it hadn't crossed my mind until I watched the new Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary, and I'm a big fan, and I realized actually the race isn't over. I can still do something that I'm proud of, right? Because I think that's one of the things I've really learned with endurance, is that one mistake is not the end. Giving up is part of the process, Because when you give up, you really then unlock the other stage of your reservoirs, but you have to give up. I personally definitely have to give up. And for giving up, I did follow my rule of, you only give up on the third time you really think about, like, you should be giving up. Even though, this time there was no injury or anything. If anything, my body fixed itself the way it does when I do endurance. It's really interesting. It snaps back into place in many situations. So I get stronger the harder it is, it seems. And I also figured out the bike. On the bike, my saddle was too low, and I was getting knee pain. Sorted that out, no knee pain, and actually a long-term hip and lower back issue yesterday snapped into place. I just literally felt it. So yeah, I decided I'll try to finish off the challenge if I can, but obviously pace myself. So I'm not gonna go and swim because the swimming was very technically challenging, but I went into the gym and used the ski erg machine that I had used to prepare for the swimming, and kind of use it to mimic swimming motions for the rest of the 4 kilometers, which is 3 kilometers. So I did that in the morning after running for a bit with my wife. She paced me for about 5k, and now I'm continuing, and the plan is today is minimum to do a half marathon and do the second half of the marathon tomorrow, and it will be a week, and then doing the distance I committed to with modifications, but I'll be happy with that. So lots of learning along the way as well, which is the best thing. It's why I do this. I guess the key thing I'm learning is things about my PhD, because I am in the process of writing the final chapter before writing the discussion. So that's going to be the first draft done. Obviously I have to do probably 2 or 3 drafts so we can do the editing properly, but the chapter is ready, so I've structured it and I managed to keep notes. It was good to be away from tech for a few days, so the way that I'll structure it as a general path in line with my data is that I want to talk about both rationality and intuition as the 2 key sections, and then a third one that synthesizes things into what I've called heuristics and rules of thumb that are very personal when choosing where to live. So with the PhD topic being about vocational decisions under uncertainty, how would you choose where to live when there isn't a best way to do it? So I've already written the chapters about the starting points of participants, learning from the experience of moving multiple times, and then with that learning developing a certain set of preferences, personal priorities and needs, and then specifically focusing on those needs in the context of place. What's the kind of places that they identify with, and what are the places participants get attached to in healthy and unhealthy ways. Attachment in the literature most of the time is talked about as positive, but there are people, a lot of them in my sample, talking about feelings of being an outsider even in the places where they were born. It was very emotional writing this to me because it's a personal thread as well. Definitely grew up where I didn't want to live, but this will be for another chapter that I put in the front of the PhD, just to make sure nobody thinks I've just created my own story with the data of everybody else. I think I've done a decent job of having my bias in there, but being clear about it, being clear about my experience, and then also showing everybody else's. So the final chapter then leads from the personal starting points, learning from the experience of moving multiple places, what kind of identities participants hold and how they get attached to places, and then could this process be rational? So that's a question I asked everybody. Do you think you've made rational decisions? And then looping back to every instance of when they moved as part of the interview structure and the technique. So rationality, kind of in the thematic analysis, came out as being about, at its core, avoiding regret was the kind of at its core. So you want to be satisfied later with where you've moved. So that's in line with the literature as well. And place attachment, if you spend longer somewhere, it means you're satisfied, but also that's what we've talked about. So it wasn't just a behavioral aspect, but a cognitive one as well, and the feelings of satisfaction that come with that will then relate to another theme, which was about kind of what one participant called as ticking boxes. So the ticking boxes then relates back to a match between one's priorities and the place. So like, can you hit your goals? In the more abstract discussion of the literature, and can be seen as rational. Set a goal and hit it. So you're avoiding regret. That relates to a lot of the Kahneman work as well, Daniel Kahneman. Then can you hit your own goals? Not be sidetracked. And these ticking boxes then get into the realms of where rationality could fail you, which is it can sometimes be an overly rationalizing process. I'm just gonna drink some water. Rationalizing process where, as one participant put it, you can just be marching, but marching towards what? So then the emotion chapter will be part of another podcast. I'll cut it for now so I can focus on the running.